All right, guys, it's time for the Next Level Guy Show, a men's interview, interest, and improvement-focused podcast featuring interviews with the greats from all industries to help you better your life. Each week, a new episode features an interview with one of the greats, covering all aspects of their story, from life hacks to tips and protocols that have allowed them to live life on the next level. We then highlight concrete action steps that you can use to improve your life. And now, your host, Ian Dawson Mackay.
Today's guest is Stirling Cooper. Stirling is an award-winning adult film star and sex coach to thousands of men, with his goal to help men become better lovers and eliminate issues such as premature ejaculation and performance anxiety. Sex is a learnable skill set like any other, and you too can build the skills to connect with, date, and sleep with high-quality partners. His aim is to help you destroy the most common mental triggers, thought patterns, and mindfucks that cause men to lose their mojos in the bedroom, and help you find the sex that you want and deserve. Through his work, he strives to emphasize the importance of undoing the damage that modern society has done to men by teaching them to embrace unapologetic masculinity and live a life more in touch with their true nature. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I've been wanting to have you on for a while now. You're somebody who's got quite a unique backstory. How do you tell people who you are? What's the bio you give them?
Well, these days I'll tell them I'm a retired porn star. A retired adult, award-winning adult film star. More of a polite way to say it. I used to be a high-class male companion. I also used to be in the swingers scene, and now I'm repenting my past sins. Right, I take that plethora of experience performing under high pressure scenarios, shall we say, in the bedroom, and I use that knowledge to help the average guy perform better in the bedroom and help him overcome all the problems guys can face in the bedroom, like erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, delayed ejaculation, performance anxiety, and help them to be better lovers and please their partner and live more fulfilling sex lives.
Oh, I like it. So, I mean, sex is a learnable skill, but a lot of guys just assume that they're fucked if they can't do it, if they haven't got a big enough cock. It's excuses. What was that turning point for you that you just thought, I want more from life. I just need to find who I am. And then you did all these amazing things from it. But what was that point that you thought, fuck this, I want more?
I mean, I was actually running a business at the time. I was running a healthy food delivery business back in Australia, and I was like grinding away like 16-hour days every day for like a year or two, about 2 years, like non-stop grind before was able to get a little bit of a breathing room. And I was having a lot of conflicts with my business partner. We weren't really seeing eye to eye. We weren't really getting along. And I just sat down for a few days and I was like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I going through all this rigmarole, this hell? And I'm like, okay, well, let's be honest. Be totally honest with yourself. Like, what do you want? And I was like, okay, well, I'm working hard so I can make money. All right, well, why do I want money? And I'm like, if I'm totally honest, it's because I want to travel around the world having sex with beautiful women. I'm completely honest with myself. This is me this is me in my like mid to late 20s. And then finally I just said, well, I'll just cut out the middleman and I'll get paid to do that. And so I managed to find my way, into adult entertainment. And yeah, the rest is kind of history after that.
I mean, so many guys do come into this because it's almost like it's an under the table thing. We're taught, okay, sex education for reproduction. There's no orgasms, kinks. There's none of the stuff that you find on your own. So, and if you don't get that kind of partner, you're screwed. So what kind of similarities do you see in the problems guys come to? Is it now that you can just literally know off the top of your head, they're going to have this because I can see that problem in them?
There's a lot of patterns you start to recognize. Guys kind of come to me and they think their situation is really like unique. And at this stage, I've been teaching guys for like 3 years now, and it's really not that unique. Like the same, because the same underlying root causes of all these problems are the same, right? So, okay, like his circumstances might be slightly different, but the fundamental problem, the root cause, is still the same, right? So if we can and it's always a case of, he'll come to me with some sort of surface level information, and then I'll have to like dig a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper. And then we get down to like, okay, what are his lifestyle habits like? What are his, what's his diet like? What's his exercise like? What's his nutrition like? What's his sleep like? What's his stress levels like? What's his kind of like mentality in and out of the bedroom with this particular girl? Is he putting her on a pedestal, or is he not putting her on a pedestal? What's his self-esteem and self-confidence like in relation to the bedroom? And once if we find out all these things, then it's very, very easy to diagnose exactly what the problem is and then come up with a solution for a guy. So I think there's not really a problem that I've come across that I haven't been able to help with a guy, because they all, in at least my experience, they all tend to come from very, very similar causes.
No, it's a great answer. I mean, because that's the thing, isn't it? If we have all these beliefs that our story is unique, that we're like such a hard done by little soldier and all these kind of things, and a lot of times it's like you're saying, it's mental triggers, it's the thought patterns that you can just go, no, here's the proof why this. I've done thousands of people who have showed, fixes and resolutions. You said, what is it? Masculinity becomes revived through bedroom mastery. Why does our kind of, as men, is that our polarity to be the lovers, to connect to people, to reproduce, all these sort of things? Why does our masculinity come through that?
Oh, no, there we go. All right. Remember that glitch I said you might see? That was it. Yeah. So, like the bedroom's like this one place that guys are still allowed to be men. Outside of the bedroom, we get told we're toxically masculine. We get told we're misogynistic. We get told we're this, we're that, we're dangerous. We're this, we're that. But all that disappears in the bedroom. Like in the bedroom, women still want men to be men. Women still want men to take charge. Women still want men to be dominant. Women still want men to be the leaders in that scenario. And I think that, when you have, let's say you're in a relationship and the dynamic is a bit off, that you're arguing all the time, or there's conflicts, and your natural gender roles, let's say, are kind of off balance. I have seen people fix that very, very well. Fix that dynamic, correct that dynamic through attacking the bedroom first and attacking the dynamic in the bedroom, that masculine polarity and that feminine polarity. Mm-hmm. The good part about that is it can start with the guy taking responsibility. It can start with the guy, making moves, doing certain things, doing certain actions, which reinforce his masculine polarity, and the woman will naturally respond well to that. Women don't want to be the ones that are taking responsibility and being in charge, particularly in the bedroom. They would much rather they would much rather be able to let go and release and have the man take charge. And that's that natural, I believe that's that natural male-female polarity. And so when you can learn to master your own body and your own mind in the context of the bedroom, and you can learn to get back in touch with that natural male-female dynamic, I think it fixes a lot of things, and I think it starts to fix things outside of the bedroom as well. It starts to fix your own attitudes. It starts to fix the relationship dynamic, her attitude towards you, your attitude towards her, and things start falling into place. Like I've had couples reach out to me, who've met the men in particular who've implemented some of my teachings, and then he's like, oh, she's not nagging anymore. She's not nagging me to take the trash out. She's not nagging me to do this and that, to pick the kids up from school. She's doing more things. She's doing her part now in the bedroom, where before it was very one-sided on the guy's half. And all it took was him, stepping up, giving her what she really needed, which was the knowledge and the feeling that he is the man in her life. And then immediately she's more secure in her relationship, she's more secure in her choice of her partner, and she's happier again. And then he's happier. So it's just a win-win all around. That's why, that I'm very, very grateful to be able to help guys in this way, because it's come from, my knowledge and experience has come from a shady background, to say the least, right? But I've at least been able to take that and turn it into something positive for a large number of men.
Does that kind of not scare, but does it kind of shock you, like how little some people know about sex, about connection? That so many guys don't know about what women really want, that they don't understand the true depths of depravity that women want, the kind of stuff that they're into, I've used toys and fucked and toilets and all these things. Guys go, oh no, my girl's not into that. And you're like, whoa, and I've lost who I was back then, and I'm trying to reclaim that. And that's why I'm so keen to have you on. But what's being an adult performer, a swinger, an escort taught you about what women want and the kind of differences between what guys think they want and what women actually want?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys are very ignorant to the kind of darker side of female sexuality and female, fantasies. They're definitely ignorant to that, and that's deliberately kind of done through, romantic comedies, mainstream movies, Hollywood, like all the sex scenes and the relationship dynamics you see in all those mainstream movies and sitcoms and things is usually the bumbling idiot man, and then the competent, very masculine woman eventually like falling for him for some retarded reason. And the sexual dynamic, the sexual polarity, the sexual tension in that relationship is trash. That's what men are just sort of from childhood. That's what men are taught that male female, sexual relationships are like. They're not taught the truth. I mean, that's why books like 50 Shades of Grey did so incredibly well, because it tapped into something in female nature that they were missing, they were craving in the outside world. And as a really good book, and even I'm not a big fan of that book in general, but there is a book that I recommend every guy read, and that's called My Secret Garden by Nancy Friday. And if you haven't heard of this book, it's an old book, actually. I believe it was like 80s. And Nancy Friday worked for the New York Times, I believe, and she put out an advertisement in the New York Times asking for women to write in their deepest fantasies. And she just collected this collection of women's fantasies and put it into a book and called it My Secret Garden. And you start going through that book as a young man. I think I read that book in my mid-20s, I think, and that blew my mind. I was like, wow, there is some perverted, dark, twisted stuff in this book that all these women are right, and there's a lot of consistencies in there, consistent patterns of things and consistent fantasies. And lo and behold, most of them have to do with being dominated in some way, be either mentally, emotionally, or physically being submissive to a man, in an extreme way. And so I think guys would do themselves a big favor to learn that side of female nature. I don't think it's due to I personally don't think it's due to our more degenerate society that we live in right now. I think this has kind of always been with us. I think it's just human nature. I think if you took away like MTV music videos, you took away Hollywood, you took away pornography, I think women would still have that desire in them. Maybe it wouldn't be manifested so extreme, but the desire for a passionate dominant lover would still exist. So yeah, it does kind of. Does it shock me that guys aren't aware of this? Not really, because the vast majority of men haven't been exposed to it in any way. They get told one thing or shown one side of reality, and then the real stuff is happening over in the background, and they never get to see it. And that's just a case of most men not really, either not having access to women who are a bit more forthcoming and open and honest with their sexual fantasies, or they've never been with a woman who's explored that in their own personal life. So,
I mean, because that can be sometimes the greatest thing. And I can think of girlfriends where it was literally you open that kind of tap and she was like, let's try this, let's buy this, and let's buy that. And now when I think back, I'm like, how the hell did I manage that? Because I went on to this mission of creating this podcast. I was going to do the work and all that. And I became this chump who didn't go out. And I was thinking, how do you do this again? And I think a big thing is like, you could, if you're great in bed, that's brilliant. You keep them around for a bit. But if you don't have your own mission, if you don't have your own values, if you don't see yourself as high value, do you think they go in hand? The guys have kind of lost, they've almost been taught to, you've got to ask for permission, you've got to be told what to do. How do we establish ourselves, love ourselves again, be high value men to build the attraction, but keep it and do our own thing?
I mean, it literally starts with what you mentioned at the beginning. You got to have a purpose and a mission in life. You got to have something that's greater than yourself. You have to have something that's a challenge to pursue. Like, one of the worst things that can happen to a man is for him to not have anything worth pursuing. Some men have it all. Some men get it all in the early stages of their life, and then their life is shit after that. I mean, I'm sure lots of people can probably know personal stories of guy. You might the cliche like jock who was popular in high school, in America, like he's head of the football team or the basketball team, or in Australia he's the footy club captain or the cricket captain. In England maybe it's or in Scotland maybe it's he's the soccer the actual football captain or whatever, and he sort of peaks in high school. He doesn't have anything else to chase, and then his time in the spotlight disappears, and he's not pursuing anything else. And those kind of men start to die on the inside very, very quickly. I think men need challenges, they need obstacles, they need adversity. Otherwise, our life becomes meaningless, really. I think men are truly happiest when they're kind of putting themselves through pain in a way. And it's manageable pain. Obviously, it's not something that's just overwhelming and you can't deal with, but a degree of like pain and discomfort constantly in your life, it actually gives you that fire. Fire and that drive to pursue things, and to jump out of bed in the morning and to win consistently for not just yourself, but for your wife, or your girlfriend, your family, your loved ones, your kids, whatever. So having one of my early mentors used to make sure, like, he sort of drilled this into us, this idea of like big, hairy, audacious goals. Like, every goal you set should be so unrealistic that it seems almost impossible. Because then at least you're going to be doing something ridiculous. At least then you're going to be doing something fun and exciting. At least then you're going to be, if you aim, what's that old saying? You aim for the stars and you'll land amongst the clouds or some crap like that. But the idea is, like, you aim really, really incredibly high, and then you're gonna at least do significantly better than the average person whose goals and aspirations tend to be very, very mediocre. So I think, the very basis, the very foundation of being that kind of guy who's going to be, let's say, high value, let's say, and is able to keep women around because he's just so interesting and he's so accomplished, is simply by setting higher goals and pushing yourself to achieve them, because that's going to round you out as a man in all aspects of your life. You're going to be able to handle stress better. You're going to be able to handle people better. Ideally, you'll be better socialized. You'll have a greater skill set. You'll be able to make more money. Hopefully, you'll stay on top of your health and your fitness, and you'll make sure you fire on all cylinders, and then that's going to make you a well-rounded and attractive man. There's really no like one secret thing that's going to attract every single woman, because women are very, very good at discerning men's real character. They're very good at discerning fakers. They're very good at discerning if a guy is say, like, fronting, if a guy is making stuff up, right? And so if he's not who he authentically says he is. So that's why you have to become a well-rounded guy. If there's certain aspects of your life that you leave unanswered, if you don't pay attention to them, not only are other people, especially women, going to notice that, but you're going to feel that internally, and you're going to feel that sort of pain, that nagging in the back of your head constantly. If you If you're not working out, if you know you're not eating well, you know you're out of shape. That's going to sit in the back of your mind. You constantly be thinking about it. If you go down to the beach, you want to have a nice relaxing day down at the beach, but you don't want to take your shirt off because you feel like you're a fat piece of shit. It's like, damn it, like that's always going to be there, Or likewise, if you're really really jacked, but you don't make any goddamn money, when it comes time to pay the rent, you're stressing out about that. It's like, oh god damn it, like I can go down to the beach and I can relax there, but I'm thinking about paying rent. Right? So being a man is not easy, man, because we've got to fire on all cylinders. But that's also like it's the double-edged sword because it makes life exciting. It makes things really really exciting. You can be whoever you want to be as a guy. You can really choose your own destiny, and it's like a choose your own adventure book from when we were kids. You get to pick whichever path you want to take, man. And I kind of like that personally.
So what would you say to guys listening who are like, hamming and hawing, they're hitting the dopamine fix, they're getting chasing the likes, they're thinking, oh, if I DM her, she'll be impressed with me and I like all her photos, or, like, how do we break this bullshit chains of, that we've got to be nice, that we've got to be sneaky, she'll see our true value. Like, how would you start changing habits now? Is it like just hardcore, no porn, get to the gym, eat healthy, sleep healthy? Like what advice would you start giving to people now to start making these changes? Because they can have a mission, but if they're not valued themselves, they're not going to do anything. How can we get past the self-improvement masturbation and actually start taking action?
Yeah, good question. So I think it's best to focus on the thing that gives you the most pain, because some people, some guys might not be in, they might be in okay shape, but their finances are really screwed over, right? And so there's two things there. I guess that one you want to focus on the area of your life that gives you the most pain. So every aspect, like all problems in our life come from either health, wealth, or relationships. Those are the three areas of our life, right? So your problems come from one of those. Okay, so figure out where your biggest pain point is currently, and then you need to start with small wins. People will set like really audacious. I know I just said set big, hairy, audacious goals, but people will try to do everything at once. Like they'll try to fix their diet and hit the gym 5 days a week and start a new business and talk to every woman they see on the street and start like a different relationship every couple of days. Like they'll try to do too many things simultaneously and they'll burn themselves out and not be able to focus on one thing and achieve enough to get a little win. So find what your biggest pain point is and then find a way to get a small but easy win to start building momentum. And you focus on slightly bigger goals, slightly bigger wins, until you've actually got yourself some momentum, and this problem part of your life is now starting to get fixed. Because that self-esteem component is very, very important. If you're down in the slums, you're not feeling very, very, not feeling high self-esteem, not feeling very confident about yourself. Well, the easiest way to do that the easiest way to improve that is to get some small wins and get some small wins in an area that was causing negative self-esteem and negative self-image in the first place. So, yeah, that would be my advice to the average guy. Find the biggest pain point and start with a very, very small win that you can then get momentum on.
No, it's cracking advice. I mean, because that's a lot of guys is, I'm going to change my entire life. And then the next day they sleep in until about 9 o'clock and go, I'll just give up. I mean, so say we were starting to eat right, we're getting back in shape. I mean, for me, I put on a pile of weight when I stopped doing jiu-jitsu, when I had digestive issues, and then that knocked on my sleep, and then I was eating crap. And before I knew it, I was like, completely had lost who I was. So for me, for example, it's where do I go to meet people? Where do I get, to go back into this? Because I'm starting to improve all this aspects. So for guys listening, what's the best way to go and meet people? Is it the tried and tested bars, clubs, restaurants? I mean, I always say about meet-up groups, social events, these sort of things. Where do you get your clients to start going out to meet these people before they can start building attraction and giving them the best sex of their life?
Yeah, I mean, you got to figure out what kind of women you want in the first place. So like bars and clubs, and it's not necessarily where you might not necessarily find a wife there. I know obviously some people have, but it's probably not the best bang for your buck in terms of finding like a long term partner who's going to be a good mother, give you a bunch of kids and things like that. I personally think finding the best places to find women in the Western world are like not in cities; they're actually in small towns. Like obviously, let's take the UK for example. Like small hamlets, small country towns, small little villages, things that are not London, things that are not London, Glasgow, Manchester, Liverpool, basically. Any of these places outside of that, you're going to find people who are a lot more, I guess, down to earth, less. What's the word I'm looking for? Less, maybe less narcissistic, maybe a little bit less egotistical, maybe a little bit less superficial. That was the word I was looking for.
Definitely a level of fakeness in the city. The acting of.
And you can have like you can definitely have fun. So you have to weigh up the pros and the cons. Like big cities, you're going to get there's a lot more people. There's a lot more people, women you can interact with on a far more frequent basis, like you said, at bars and clubs and things like that. And the beautiful thing about England is that there's pubs everywhere, and the women actually frequent the pubs. So there is actually plenty of opportunity for you to practice your social skills and just walk up to a pretty lady and ask her out, or walk up to a pretty lady and ask for a name and for a number, and just practice it. And more importantly, get practice at getting rejected, because you're going to get rejected. Everybody's going to get rejected. Everybody does. The most handsome men I know still get rejected. And so, but the more you do it, the more immune you become to it, and then that makes you more charming, and that makes you more confident, and actually increases your self-esteem. Your self-esteem should not, in that field, I would say, in the field of like women, your self-esteem should not be derived from like the results you get. It should be derived from the action that you take. So you should feel, even if you walked up to a pretty girl at a bar and you got rejected, you should feel amazing afterwards because you did it, right? Because you took action, because you grabbed yourself by the balls and you actually went and did something. Your self-esteem should not be tied to any particular outcome. I think that's a very, very important thing for guys to internalize. So obviously that's big cities, right? But then where do you find all the good girls that aren't in the big cities if you want to look for someone who's a bit more long term? Okay, again, depends what kind of girl you're into. Are you into like a nerdy girl who maybe goes to like plays board games or Magic the Gathering or like or computer games on the weekend? Or are you into a girl who likes to read books? Does she hang out at the library? Or are you into a girl who actually looks after her physique and her appearance? Maybe she's at the nail salon. Maybe she's at the hairdresser. Maybe she's at a beach. Maybe she's off walking through a park. You have to. It's kind of exactly the same as sales in a way, like sales and marketing, right? When you're selling a product, you want to know who the target demographic is. Like, okay, if for example with my products, right, my target demographic is men between the ages of 25 and 35 who are interested in relationships, dating, improving, or have some kind of problem in the bedroom. That's basically my target demographic. So if you're looking for a particular type of woman, then the first step is to find out what you're actually into. Like, do you have, because that will give you standards for a start, and it'll allow you to vet women a lot better too for like long-term relationships. Okay, so have a list of criteria of the kind of woman you're going after. What are her interests? What are her hobbies? What's her age? Where is she from? Things like this, and then you can actually start practically dialing in where those women actually are, and then keep practicing.
I love that way of looking at it. It's like you should be proud of that you did it rather than the result of it, and because so many guys, they beat themselves up because she said no. It's like, well, there's 7 billion women on the planet, or whatever it is. Like, there's another one there. I used to do the one-itis. So I can't think about the time I wasted going back to it, and I'm probably now still have bullshit that I'm stuck on. I mean, I used to use, I don't know if you know, Real Social Dynamics. It used to be the pickup company. One of their, I think it was Ozzy, the instructor, he had this thing called physical game where you would grab their hand and spin them round and pull them up to the bar. And, it wasn't like anything creepy, but it was, you broke the unwritten rules of it. And then they talked about vocal tonality and all these sorts of things. And, it got a bit creepy with the routines and stuff that they used to do. But how do you find that guys can be building that attraction? Like getting them, because I think you say, what was it? Getting them wet between the legs. How do we what kills and builds attractions, like from getting them to sleep with you that night to wanting to come home with you. How do we be men again without being the Me Too men, the creepy bastards,
Yeah, I think there's something guys are actually worried about is that whole Me Too stuff. The average guy is very, very paranoid about that. I think a bit overly paranoid about it, honestly, because most of us are not minor celebrities. We don't have a reputation to actually destroy in the first place. Mm. So what are the kind of things that will help guys become across as a lot more attractive? I personally think. I mean, you did mention a couple of things there already, like vocal tonality, being able to speak calmly and rhythmically pace your speech, pause, be not rushing through your words, because that's something we tend to do. Basically, everything I'm going to say right now is really just displaying like calm, relaxed, confident energy versus like nervous and anxious and intimidated kind of energy. So think about the way that a guy would talk if he was very, very nervous. His throat's going to tighten up. His pitch is going to increase. He's going to try to rush his words out versus a guy who's a lot more calm and relaxed and confident. When he's talking to a lady, he's going to be, I mean, we'll get onto eye contact in a second, but he's going to be looking at her dead in the eye. And he's going to be talking very calmly, projecting, enunciating, not in a rush to deliver his point. And that, like, these are all this is what's called like sub-communication, right? This is the communication that's not done with words. It's our body language, but it conveys our sense of self. It conveys our self-esteem. It conveys our current emotional state at that time that we're talking to that person. And these are things that women pick up on. Like, two men can say the exact same thing. They can say the exact same line to a woman, and one will succeed and one will fail. And that's all down to their body language and their tonality and the way they present themselves, right? So speaking calmly and relaxed is very, very important. Having calm, relaxed body language, being open, being not being closed off and fidgeting and touching your face and touching yourself constantly, but being open and relaxed. These are body language cues that demonstrate that you're a calm, confident individual. Eye contact, I personally think, is extremely important. I think a lot of guys don't do eye contact. They don't focus on eye contact enough. They're either too creepy with their eye contact, where they're just glaring at somebody and never looking away, never breaking it, or they're too timid and they never look at a woman in the eyes. Women, there's a fine kind of balance there, and that obviously comes through experience. But if you're able to look a woman dead in the eyes while you're talking to her, or, and even more importantly, maintain eye contact with her when she's talking to you, it's incredibly powerful. And if you do it correctly, you can feel the sexual tension between you and a woman building up without you could be talking about the weather, and you're not touching each other. But if that eye contact is there and it's intense, then you can start to feel that sexual tension build. And that's what I talked about. That's what I'm referring to when I'm saying, getting them wet between the legs. And then on top of that, something that I personally really like to use is like incidental physical contact when I'm talking with a woman. If we're sitting down, at dinner, or if we're sitting down next to each other on a couch or something in a bar or wherever we might be, if my leg is suddenly just resting up against her leg, if there's some kind of, or our butts are touching, or like my arms around her, or something like this, if there's some kind of incidental physical contact going on at all, like constantly, while we're just conversing, that takes the interaction from like platonic to sexual, like instantly. And you will feel it as the guy. You'll notice it, because she sure as hell will notice it. That's another big thing to understand, is like whatever kind of emotional state that you feel, she is going to feel as well, and she's going to pick up on. So if you're nervous and anxious and intimidated, she's going to feel nervous and anxious and intimidated around you. She's not going to feel safe around you. If you're calm, the ideal state of mind is like calm arousal. Like you're turned on by her, you're into her, you're attracted to her. You're not afraid to express that, but you're also very, very calm in the way that you are expressing it. You're not out of control. You're in control of that arousal. You're not letting her kind of like a puppy just running around like at its owner's behest. She's not able to like affect you that much, but you're still attracted to her. You're still aroused by her, but you're calm in the way you do it. So I think that's very, very important. Like having that underlying like sexual tension in an interaction with a woman is key to turning it to having it not be a platonic interaction, so you don't get friend zoned, but having it head in a positive direction. And so I think strong, intimate eye contact, good vocal tonality, and incidental physical touching are like three really basic things that every guy can and that's enough for a guy to like focus on. It's not like he doesn't have to remember like a million lines and a million different techniques and things like that.
Yeah.
He can just still talk about. He can still be himself. Obviously, the art of the conversation is something that guys have to work on too. You have to learn to actually hold a conversation. But that takes a lot more practice. Those three really basic things any guy can implement within a day. And if you just those are the fundamentals. If you get those fundamentals down, then your interactions with women will be a hell of a lot better.
It's time for a quick break. There are millions of potential products to buy, so how do you know which ones are worth your hard-earned money? Simple. You go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and explore those that will transform and improve your life. You'll find deals, listener exclusives, and special offers with some great companies. Recommendations are 100% honest and only on items Ian has tried or believes in. The companies showcased will make you a better man in all areas of your life. Simply go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and level up.
Because I suppose that kind of links into, the polarity thing we're talking about, the male polarity against the female polarity, allowing her to be a female in that interaction and you taking the lead and, taking control. And as you do more and more of these, you learn about yourself, you become more attractive, you're working on your mission, your health, etc. So you start becoming more attractive and you build the reference points. So say you start taking somebody home, you're getting going in the moment. You've been in front of a lot of guys, like, camera crews and directors and stuff. So you have to perform with a lot of eyes on you. Now, I probably hold the record for having a threesome and being in my head. Two girls, one girl's eating the other one out. And I was sitting in my head thinking, what do I do? I'm feeling really awkward. Why are they not waiting for me? And I can remember getting bored in a threesome. To this day, I still do not know how it happened. And it was the best moment of my life at the time. And I was thinking, oh, what? And I can remember slotting in my head because I put it down to having depression, not being valued, all this bullshit in my head. How do we switch out of that? Get in the moment, because nowadays I don't need that to think about it. But for guys who struggle, they're worrying about ejaculating too soon or not getting it up or whatever it is. How do we switch out of that, get in the moment and just enjoy that connection with partners, animals, whatever the fuck it is?
Definitely not animals. But basically, it's how we talk to ourselves. Is that the self-talk we give ourselves when, not just when we're with a partner in an intimate situation, but also when we're by ourselves. A lot of guys will have very, very negative self-talk. They'll have very negative impressions of themselves. They'll have very negative opinions of themselves, and that will manifest itself into these symptoms, right? Like premature ejaculation or erectile dysfunction, right? And let's take that hypothetical example of like you're in a threesome and then you're starting to get anxious or nervous or whatever, right? Well, to me that sounds like a guy who has low self-esteem. He's starting to he's wondering if he even deserves this, right?
Oh, definitely at the time, yeah.
Right. Okay. So I'm already hitting the nail on the head. But so how do we fix that? How do we take that pressure off myself? Or one, it starts by having a stronger self-esteem. It starts by and you fundamentally get stronger self-esteem. You improve your self-esteem by working on yourself and by understanding that. Again, this ties back into what I said about like talking to women, right? It's not the outcome, it's the process. You have to drive your self-esteem by taking actions in your day-to-day life that improve your life. So even if you didn't, let's say you didn't even go to the gym today, let's say you just went for a 10-minute walk. That's better than doing absolutely nothing, right? At least you did something positive for your life. Let's say your diet wasn't perfect, but breakfast was really on point. Okay, great. It wasn't 10 out of 10, but at least I did some action. So like that's personally the way I derive my self-esteem is like, am I doing the things I need to do every day? In my business, in my health, in my relationships, am I doing them to help build up my self-esteem? And over the course of a lifetime, that eventually manifests as like unwavering confidence in yourself, because you know you are worthy of love, you know you're worthy of female attention, because you've worked on yourself, because you're someone who values themselves, you're someone who holds himself to a high standard, you're someone who takes consistent action. So it's all positive. Those are things that really compound on each other to create good positive self-esteem. Now, the other thing that can happen with guys is that they put too much pressure on themselves because they feel like they need to perform or meet a certain standard in the bedroom, and this tends to lead to like performance anxiety, right? And premature ejaculation too. Actually, those two tend to be very, very intimately linked, and they're linked because it's the idea of like the guy is putting pressure on himself to perform to a certain standard. The various forms of thoughts that are going on in this guy's head are like, oh, if I don't do well, she won't like me. If I don't do well, she won't see me again. If I don't do well, then I won't have sex again for another 6 months. I'll be back in a dry spell. If she'll laugh at me if I come too early. And there's a classic like saying, if I tell you not to think of an elephant, the first thing that pops into your head is typically going to be an elephant. Yeah. And so if your mind is constantly obsessed with these kinds of thoughts of, oh, if this bad outcome happens, then these things are gonna that she's gonna think this or that's gonna happen or this is gonna happen. Well, you're already off to a bad start. So you have to really take to be more in the moment and to take that pressure off yourself. You have to master the art of just letting go, and it's like performing without performing. It's like you are fundamentally going to be a better lover and be more passionate and be more in the moment and be more expressive and enjoy it. And your partner's going to enjoy it more if you truly do not give a shit. That's kind of where you end up getting to. Like the guys who, and then once you get into that kind of more of a positive feedback loop of not giving a shit, and then your performance improves, well, then you start to tap into your sexual ego in a way, and you derive more confidence from the fact that you're performing well now, right? And that leads to a more positive upward spiral where anytime you're interacting with a woman, you fundamentally know that you can rock her socks off. You fundamentally know you can rock her world because you've done it before, because you have that sexual confidence. But it starts with fixing this the pressure that we put on ourselves and really giving up. You really fundamentally have to give yourself permission to fail. That's what it really is. Like, because you're just resisting, right? If you're worried so much about your performance, if you're worried so much about failing and all these bad things that can happen, you're really just resisting a hypothetical example or a hypothetical situation. So, okay, instead of resisting, what if instead of resisting that, you just said it's okay if that happened? What if you just allowed it to happen? And what you'll find is if you allow it to happen, it's probably not even going to happen. If you allow yourself to have a bad performance, just give yourself this one time off. Just say, you know what? I don't care if I bust a nut in 30 seconds. You know what? I don't care if I don't get an erection right now. If you you allow yourself to truly feel that, allow yourself to truly just mark up like this one is going in the L column, and that's okay. Be okay with that. You would be surprised how well you will actually perform, and how much that will take away that pressure, and start to teach your brain how to actually operate in the bedroom better.
I mean, that's probably helped so many guys listening, because I don't mind talking about it, because to me it was like a learning experience. When I look back now, it was like two different versions of me. I had the version that was in my head, but then when I got into the moment, it was some of the freakiest sex I'd had at the time. And now when I look at the back, I'm like, we used to do it in pub toilets, on car bonnets. We used to use toys, and like the girls would always be open to trying new things. They would then think about what they wanted to do, and then it's like that two dynamics, and I like that way of it's like your sexual ego, it's your that confidence, and to this, even now, I cringe when I think about it. But I also look back at it as one of the best experiences of my life because it was two people I adored at the time, but also it's probably a bad thing because I ended up having feelings for one while I was kind of dating the other one. Yeah, but that's another story. But how do we encourage women to be open in the bedroom? How do we encourage them to chase their desires, to do our own desires? Like, because you've got a great video on introducing BDSM, the dominant stuff, more kind of risque sex kind of stuff. Or maybe that's not the word I'm looking for. Like the naughtier side of sex, as some would call it, where to other people it's just bread and butter. I mean, she was up for all sorts of like butt plugs and things like that, but you can't say that to anybody nowadays because it's seen as, oh no, that's your personal stuff. You don't share it. But a lot of girls are into that, being spat on, dominated, spanked, choked, all these sorts of things.
So how do you? Okay, how do you kind of bring that out of a woman, right? It's I mean, there's obviously a few different ways to do it, but I think that it's always going to be a better situation if you're coming at something. If you're just women want a guy who kind of just gets it. Women always want a guy who kind of psychically already knows what she's into, and which is obviously incredibly hard to do. So. But you start to recognize patterns over time, and you start to recognize like, oh, okay, this girl's probably into like having her hair pulled. This girl seems to be into spanking. This girl seems to be into like this or that, a little bit more rough, a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that. And so, okay, well, how do we open her up to it? Well, you don't want to go from like 0 to 100 like straight off the bat. I don't personally think. I think it's far better to sort of start to, especially if it's a new partner, especially if you're not entirely sure and you as a man are not entirely super experienced with it. You want to kind of baby step your way into, say, more extreme things. And let's take, for example, like using butt plugs or whatever, right? Or like let's take, for example, anal sex. If you wanted to have anal sex with a woman, right? You try to break that thing down into like smaller, bite-sized things that aren't as extreme as that. So what might that be? Well, it might start off at the lower end of that scale as like in doggy style, like just playing with the outside of her anus with your thumb, not sticking anything in her butt, but just playing with the anus. Like so, you're linking the positive sensations she's getting from like penetrative sex to the sensation of having her anus played with, right? Okay, and then we move up from that to maybe you start to like slip the thumb in there every now and then, right? And this is in a different sex session as well, not in the same sex session. It's in a different one. And then the next time, maybe you start to introduce butt plugs. Maybe you either bring one, or you tell her to buy one, or you bring up the idea before you get to the bedroom of like getting a butt plug, and then you start with that. Okay, and then you start to train her butt, and then you start to experiment with anal sex. But you've basically baby stepped your way there, right? It's not just you haven't gone from 0 to 100 instantly. You've done it in a way that allows her, very importantly, to kind of to stop wherever she's comfortable. So you don't push a boundary, you don't force anything on a woman, obviously. But it also allows her to, maybe she'd never even considered this. Maybe she'd never even had the opportunity to experience this in a positive, pleasurable way. And so now you're giving her that opportunity. That's also a mental kind of model that you want to use to approach these things. You're giving her the opportunity to explore these things in a fun, safe way. So you can open up her sexuality and open up all kinds of new experiences for her. So that's just one example, given anal sex, but this applies to basically anything you want to do. All kinds of BDSM stuff. Maybe maybe you like to, you're a bit of an exhibitionist. You like to do things like risque in outdoor locations or whatever. Obviously, be very, very careful where you do that because of the Johnny Law. But these are, again, all these things are things we can baby step a woman into by making sure that she's comfortable And it's very, very important too that you're actually comfortable with it as well, because if you're not comfortable, then she will not feel comfortable. You have to lead her through the experience, so you have to be the one that's confident and comfortable in doing it in the first place. So, yeah, that's a couple of things I'll say in regards to like opening up her sexuality like that. Obviously, and then obviously you can definitely talk about this sort of stuff. I'm not saying you can't talk about it, but I think women tend to have a far more enjoyable, pleasurable experience when the man feels like he's naturally leading her through a new experience, rather than saying, "Hey, babe, would you like to try out this or that?" Because sometimes she might not even know, because she's never experienced it. Like I said before, if she's never done it before, she never even considered it. Well, maybe she doesn't know. So you want to sort of baby step into it and dabble in it, so she can see if she's actually into it or not.
No, it's a fantastic answer, because I've had very similar, like, oh, I don't know if I'm into that. We chatted about it. She wanted to try other things. Then it was a thumb in. Then it was, before you know it, she's pulling out the lube and saying, I want to try it. And I was thinking, that's fantastic, because you're not pressurizing. You're letting them explore. And it's quite sad that we have to go through the rigmarole of, I'm a good girl, I don't do anything. And then as soon as you're in the bedroom, you get to know them. They want to do really debauched stuff, and you're like, why can't we just come out and say, I want to do this? Are you into that? All right, cool. I want to come back and have 3 of your friends watching, or whatever it is. And we have to play to societal rules. We have to pretend to be this image and then we don't always get our needs met. So you think how many people are unhappy in marriages and stuff. It's really sad when I think about it. But you said
there's a lot of people with very, very boring, dull sex lives because of that exact reason.
I mean, you said, what was it? You get laid 10% more when you adopt the mindset that sex is a reward for her, not for you. So how would we use that then going forward? How can we, because we're working on our missions, we're getting into shape, we're going to the bar, we're using the 3 techniques you talked about earlier. But how do we take that, we're killing the dopamine chasing that we've been doing with social media, etc. But how do we use that mindset to then start killing it?
Yeah, so I personally like this mentality in the bedroom. Sex is a reward for her, not for you. I mean, think about it. Just think about it practically. Who's doing most of the work in the bedroom anyway? The guy is doing most of the athletic work.
Oh yeah.
I can tell you this for certain, because every time I've met a female porn star and she's done, like, let's say she's done like lesbian strap-on scenes with another woman, ask them every time. They're just like, "Damn, that was a lot of work." I'm like, "Yeah, that's what we have to do all the time."
Oh, yeah.
So even women will admit that the guys do all the work. So okay, you're doing all the work. All right, women are typically a lot harder to please. Like women, that's the kind of like the colloquial, known thing that takes women a lot longer to orgasm than it takes men. Okay, women are a lot more. It's like a Rubik's cube. You got to kind of like figure out her exact combination to get her where she needs to get to. So there's more. Not only it's more physically demanding, it's more like more time involvement. So there's all these, like, if you didn't agree with that kind of like frame of mind anyway, I'm here. I'm trying to convince you of it objectively, right? Even if you don't need to be convinced objectively, adopting the mindset that sex is a reward for her, not for you, it creates the correct dynamic in the relationship. Because a woman wants to be with a guy that she finds sexy. A woman wants to be with a guy that she wants to please. A woman wants to be with a guy that she can like look up to. A woman wants to be with a guy that she can beg for sex in a way. So when you start in a way that what that does is it kind of puts you on a pedestal instead of putting her on a pedestal. And so that makes your sex as a reward for her. That makes your time a lot more valuable. That makes your energy and your focus infinitely more valuable. I think that corrects the dynamic in the relationship that you have with a woman. And that allows you to then approach the bedroom in a far more confident manner and approach the bedroom in a far more dominant manner. I personally am a big fan of like teasing a woman, and this all kind of ties into like daddy dom BDSM type stuff. But yeah, I'm a big fan of making a woman beg for it. I'm a big fan of making a woman like teasing her, making her be patient, and not giving her what she wants like immediately, because women really, really enjoy the build up. They really enjoy the suspense. They really enjoy the teasing aspect of sex, and that fundamentally actually makes it way, way, way easier to make a woman climax. The more you can sort of lay and build up that sexual tension over time in your interaction, that's going to make the orgasm infinitely easier for you as a guy than if you just try to, kind of jump in there a million miles an hour and go to pound town like instantly. Yes, some women will totally enjoy that, and yes, that's very, very appropriate for like quickies down like an alleyway or something like that. So there's a time and a place for everything. But yeah, using sex as like a reward, and again, when it comes to a relationship, it's also a way for you to reward her if she's doing good things in her life for you. If she's behaving well, if she's helping you, and maybe she's helping you out around the house, maybe she's helping you in your business, maybe she's doing something nice for you, maybe she cooked you a nice meal, whatever it is. Okay, then you can use sex as a reward for that positive behavior, rather than, because the default dynamic that we have in the Western world is like women reward men with sex, right? And that's what you see in all sitcoms, all rom-coms, is that dynamic. Is the dynamic of, if he's a good little boy, eventually she'll just drip feed him a little bit of sex here and there to placate him, to keep him doing things for her. Okay, well, like no one seems to have a problem with that narrative being perpetuated throughout society, which I think is very, very toxic and not at all conducive to a happy relationship anyway, because the woman ends up resenting the man. The dude ends up wasting so much time and energy running around in circles to try and get a little bit of pussy, resentful pussy, if that. So it's not a happy relationship. But if we flip that dynamic around, all of a sudden everyone is happy. The dude's happier, and the woman is way, way, way happier when that dynamic is completely flipped.
I love it. I love how we overthink it. Because in my head, when I was creating these questions, I was thinking it's this, it's that, and it's this, and I was making it such a big image in my head, where in reality, it's like you're saying, it's the emotional ride you take them on, well, literally. It's what you're open to them. I mean, I'd love to have you back on, and we can go into a lot of actually what you're doing in the bedroom, controlling, implement, all these sorts of things. But I know we're past our time just now. But what would you want guys to take from this? What would you want them to kind of remember to use, even if it's like mission steps or if it's just a general reminder? What do you want them to take from this?
Yeah, I want them to understand that sex is a learnable skill, like anything else. Anyone can learn it. Anyone can get better at it. Anyone can master it. I'd say that you're not, like, if you have an issue or a problem, in the bedroom right now that's kind of frustrating you, know that you're not in a unique situation. It is fixable, and plenty of other men have fixed the problems just like yours. So don't, get your hopes down and don't fall into a pit of despair. I think those two things are very, very important. And and third, I'd say, make sure that that's sex is a very important aspect of your life, but it's one aspect. So make sure that you are taking care of all these other aspects of your life at the same time, because they all compound on top of one another. When your health's on point, you're definitely going to be way better in the bedroom, right? When your finances and your career is doing well, if you balance your life properly, then you're going to feel better, more self-esteem. You're going to feel more confidence, and that again will translate into every other area of your life. So, yeah, I think paying attention and trying to make sure that all health, wealth, and relationships, all three areas of your life, you are in some way, shape, or form working towards those and deriving your self-esteem, not necessarily from like being outcome dependent with your self-esteem, but being tying your self-esteem to the daily actions that you take is a very, very healthy way of building your self-esteem and building your confidence as a man, in my opinion.
I love it. I think we're just touching the surface. So, I mean, if you're up for it, I would love to go in some deeper, darker hole. Sounded wrong. But what do you want the evolution of your brand to be? And how can people keep in touch? Because you've helped so many guys in this, just, as we're kind of covering the general areas. How can we follow on? How can we get the ebooks, sign up for coaching, do all the kind of stuff you're going, because you're killing it in the business, etc. Where are you taking this? What's the Stirling mission
Yeah. I mean, my mission is to help as many men as I possibly can overcome any and all problems they have in the bedroom. I'm trying to help guys optimize their health, optimize their sex life. So on my YouTube channel right now, we're making a big push towards getting out more like health and nutrition content, actually. Teaching guys a lot more about hormones, teaching guys about nutrition, diet, gut health, these kind of things. I think I'm a big fan of that sort of stuff. I have a fair bit of knowledge on it, so I think why not? And I also teach the sex stuff too, but I can help teach this side of help guys to improve this aspect of their life, because again, it's all encompassing. It all helps one another. So that's kind of where the brand's heading. If people want to stay in touch with me, stirlingcooper.com. Stirling spelled like it is up here, STIRLING. Stirlingcooper.com is my website. You can sign up to my newsletter there. You can find my links to my YouTube and everything there, my Twitter, etc. If you want to go to any of my socials, again, type in Stirling Cooper on YouTube. I'm the first thing that comes up. You'll find me there. Tons of free advice on a whole host of different topics. We go into plenty of details on specific sexual techniques on that channel. My Twitter is @StirlingWisdom. You can see my musings and ramblings there. And if you want an insight into my life, my lifestyle, I guess, you go to my Instagram, and that's @CooperStirling. It's the other way around. That's where you can find me and stay up to date with me and what I teach and the evolution of this random brand that I've created.
Well, that's it for another week, and thank you for listening. It's now time to take what you've learned and use it to develop and enhance your life with the key points mentioned. Listen, try it, embrace it, use it, and crush it. Now's your time to hit that next level in your life. If you liked this episode, then please leave a comment on the show notes or a review of the show on your podcast platform. Everything helps evolve the show. Until next week, keep seeking the next level in your life.